Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for that little technical wrong slide and everything. Error at the beginning. As with all mistakes on fundraising every event, it is entirely my fault. So lovely to see you all. My name is Simon Scriber. I am one of the co-founders of Fundraising Everywhere, and you are all very welcome here today, joining us to talk about email strategies. I got confused because the wrong slide came up, and like you, I assume you were very confused. Am I in the right place? You are in the right place because we are working with Raisley today for this session. Can we talk better strategies for email stewardship? Don't worry, I will get my stuff together and we will have a good day. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. And first of all, I will say you're at the world exclusive of the Fundraising Everywhere hoodie. I don't know if you like this. Does it suit? Would you wear one? But no one has seen these before until now. So there you go. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. So welcome back to anyone who's been to a Fundraising Everywhere event before. A special welcome to all of our members. We love you. Thank you very much for being part of this. You are, sessions like these come about because of what you want to see and because of what you want to learn and what you want to hear about. And so we have an amazing speaker, Muna Hassan, with us today. And Muna is backed by popular demand. Muna has spoken at events before, and the feedback is always great. So we're going to be focusing on email strategies today, and this is going to be really good. I'm really excited about this because it's such a great speaker. So let me first of all talk you through, if you haven't been to this event, or just to remind you if you have, how this works. So you can hopefully see me and hear me. If not, or I don't know how that's going to help if you can't see or hear me. But if you have any tech issues, just refresh the page. If you still have problems, reach out to the team at hello@fundraisingeverywhere.com. and we will talk you through it. But do not worry, this is recorded. So if you need to chip off early, or if you know someone who might enjoy the session, then it will be recorded so people can register afterwards and get access to it, and you can come back to the same link and view it at any time. What else do I need to say? The chat box, you'll see the chat box hopefully is already active. I can see lots of people chatting in already. So please do use that chat box, throw your questions in there, chat to each other, share your LinkedIn there. This is a networking session as well as hearing some really, really good information from Muna. So please do make the most of that chat box. Go in there, make sure it works for you. Say hello now. And I can see people joining us from Finland. I can see people joining us from Dance City in Newcastle. Dance City, I assume, is an organization and not a place. But if it was a place, I really want to go there. And I'm sure Kevin Bacon would be there. We've got Katie, we've got Claire, we've got Sophie, we've got Rachel. We've got a very busy chat box. But do feel free to put your questions in there. I will be coming back on with Muna for a Q&A at the end. If we don't get to your questions, which sometimes happens in these lunchtime sessions, you can reach out to Muna, and I do highly encourage that because she's so helpful, and the team at Raisley have been so helpful and so supportive. Underneath the video, you will see two buttons. One is to book a chat. And I think, RIP Muna's calendar, because I think she's going to regret this after this. She's going to get a lot of people chatting because the sessions are always so good. But also in the delegate bag there, you'll see a place where you'll be able to get some more handouts and some more information around this session after. So please, that will be there for you after this session. Come back and sign up for those, or do that now. Finally, we have a polls button underneath the chat box. You can see a little polls button there. Go ahead and try it out. There's already a poll active. You can go ahead and make sure it's working for you. But if there's polls throughout the session, that's what you do. You just click that button underneath. I think that's all the housekeeping I need to say before we don't stop wasting any more time with me pressing the wrong buttons and just waffling at the beginning. And let's get our very special guest on, because as I said, Raisley, you've seen them pop up. Their name pop up at a few events before. They make things like this possible, and we're really, really grateful to them. But we're really grateful to the speaker today because she's got such an amazing track record and such an interesting history, and the feedback has always been so good. So I will bring on Muna. Hello, how are you? Oh, you're muted.
Straight away, the tech issues continue.
I know, it always happens. It has to happen. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you so much. I absolutely love the hoodie, by the way. I feel like I need to get hold of one of those as well. It's very complementary colors, Raisley and fundraising. So I think
oh, I like that.
Together,
I like that. Yeah, we'll get a little mashup limited edition trainers.
Yeah, okay, I would love that. Thank you so much.
I'm going to hand over to you now, but I will be keeping an eye in the chat box, and I will be coming back because I'm sure I'm going to have lots of questions. So over to you, Muna.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone spending the time with me the next 45 minutes. I'm going to be talking about better strategies for email stewardship. please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. I think a lot of you have been doing that already. Let me know where in the UK you are, but also which charity you're representing at the moment. If you're a Raisley client and you've joined us, hello. You may have chatted emails with me before, but don't worry, I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm going to go into a lot more in depth than we've talked about before. So hopefully there'll be some great new info and tactics for you all to use. Simon already introduced me, but I'm Muna. I've been in marketing and income generation for a very long time, and I've worked with both at charities, but also with charities. The one that I'm always banging on about, because I'm so proud of the work they do, even to now, even though I'm not part of them anymore, is the Bike Project. So in my tenure as head of marketing and fundraising, I got to work on some awesome campaigns, and I always kind of talk about them wherever I go. So check them out, the Bike Project. If you've got an old bike, feel free to donate it to them as well. Simon, would it be okay if we popped up our first poll? Because I'd love to know a little bit more about what people are doing in terms of email communication. So yeah, lots of people have said, over half have said that, yes, you're using lots of email to communicate with your donors and fundraisers. That's awesome. That means most of you are off to a cracking start. And I'm looking forward to seeing if any of the information I share today can help you think a little bit more about where you are at the moment. But also a good percentage have said that, yes, but it's limited. So again, there'll be some really, really good percentage, hopefully some good information, so that percentage can feel a little bit more comfortable. And there are some who have also sadly said no, but that's totally fine. That's why we have these talks. We can hopefully work out something for you that will make you feel a little bit more comfortable with the emails. Thank you so much, Simon. So what I'd love to do is start talking a little bit about, obviously, myself. I've already introduced myself, and a quick reminder that in the delegate bag, which you can download, we've got quite a few goodies. It will include these slides, and you'll also have access to an amazing email planning document, complete with copy examples, prompts to help you get the best out of, if you want to use them, AI content generators, and 2 complete journeys, one for donors and one for fundraisers. So please feel free to go ahead and dive into that. If you're already using email, like 58% of you, 60% of you said you are, as a significant part of your stewardship comms, then go ahead and pilfer what you like from this document. But if not, then this might be a great place to start. So you can download this now or after the talk. All right, back to Raisley. Now, we're a B Corp fundraising platform. Just thought I'd introduce where I'm actually calling in from. It started off in Australia, but we've since supported charities all over the world, especially here in the UK. I'm an ex-Raisley client. At the Bike Project, we used Raisley quite a lot, and we're still the team is still using them. See, this is how much I love the Bike Project. I still say we. And here at Raisley, we work with charities including Myeloma UK, ISPCC, several of the Age UK orgs, and many, many more. If you want to chat more about this, you can book a call with me via the call to action at the top of your screen, or if you want to chat about email, which is the whole point of today's talk. What do we do for charities? It's basically a means to provide, to help you build all of your community fundraising campaigns in one place with fully customizable pages. So it includes peer-to-peer, to appeals, to ticketing, to challenge events, and best of all, it's completely free. So feel free to visit us at raisley.com to learn more. But today we're here to talk about fundraising. And it does feel a little bit like I am repeating myself on every talk I've done in the last 4 years, quite a few which have been with fundraising everywhere. But the fundraising landscape does remain turbulent. I don't know about you, but I'd give quite a lot to go back to precedented times as opposed to unprecedented times. But alas, we have to continue to roll with the punches and the times. That doesn't mean that it's all bad news, to be honest. Yes, there are undeniable pressures, but there are also some really good opportunities, both on the public, pressures on the public, and us as charities and individuals who work with charities. But there, like I said, lots of opportunities as well. So the cost of living feels like a buzzword that's been around for a long time. It is a constant pressure. Inflation is going to continue going up and has been continuing to going up. But 73% of the public are still donating money in some capacity. And yes, there is a lot of cause fatigue. Every day, there's another vitally important issue that we should be paying attention to that that we should be getting involved in. But that doesn't mean that everyone is able to get involved with everything. So the majority of individuals are choosing to focus on one cause. And finally, in a world with so many ways to donate, petitions or other platforms through which you can donate, individuals are very keen to engage directly with charities. And almost half of them are donating directly through their website or through something like email. Now, speaking of email, why email? Well, I think it's really important to dive back into this channel because sometimes I think it can be a bit overlooked, or it can be really scary. As charities, we can be a little bit cautious as to how we use email and when we use emails. First up, I do have to say that it does remain one of the most trusted methods of connecting digitally with your audience. I'm probably going to use this analogy so often throughout this talk, but I always think of emails as sort of the podcasts of comms. People are quite focused when they're looking at emails. Yes, they're going through their inbox and they're checking different emails, but generally they tend to be on that one screen, as opposed to when you are in your feed, you might be looking at lots of different things in your social media feed, or if you're on your WhatsApp, there might be lots of different chats and so on going on. It is a method that allows you to build a natural connection to your audience. Remember that for the most part, and I do say the most part here, if we are following GDPR laws, and I know not everyone does all the time, email is an active opt-in model. So people are wanting to be engaged with you. They've signed up with you. And email actually is also one of the channels that performs the most strongly. So this is quite a busy chart, but the takeaway here is that social media remains really important and it has its place. But you might be surprised to learn that conversion rates are higher for direct email and web traffic. Obviously, direct and web traffic is quite obvious. When someone is on your website, they are there to engage with you already. But in other words, when it comes to emails, when someone is engaging with you via these channels, they're focused on you, your words, the call to action, and the impact that you're putting in front of them. Social media is converting less, and the previous channels, so email, web traffic, have higher average donation amounts. So again, I don't want to bash social media. It's a really important tool to find your audience, to convert them to your email database. But let's not neglect the fact that email is really where people are engaged with you and can donate more to you. How does this break down? Well, let's get into some of the numbers. The average email subscriber in the UK receives 121 emails per day between personal and work. That's a lot of emails for someone to sift through, and a lot of competition for you when you're sending emails to them and trying to convert them to your cause. In the UK, every single day across all different sectors, 8.3 billion emails are sent, which sounds mind-boggling. It's not, it's across all sectors, so not just non-profit. But having said that, the open rate for emails remain really good. So an average is 20 to 40%, which means 20% of the emails minimum that get sent across all sectors, and we're going to go through the non-profit details in a moment, get open, which is really good. Now, when you do dive into the nonprofits here, specifically in the UK, we can see that the numbers are actually remaining really quite high and positive. So charities have been sending an increased messaging volume on everything you're looking at is since the pandemic, so since about 21. 49% up in terms of messaging volume, which means we're sending longer and longer emails. This can be a good thing, and we're going to go into content more later, but this might be a good time to consider how long every email your charity sends is and who you're sending them to. Are you sending too much information in one go for your donors, your audience, or your fundraisers to engage with? This might be a good time to have a bit of a think, because that messaging volume has gone up by 49% since the pandemic. Speaking of volume, each charity tends to send 27 emails per subscriber per year. That's not too many. That's 2 a month. That might explain why each email is so long. Again, another thing that you can pause to consider here is there a way you could cut the volume down by perhaps considering increasing the number of emails that are sent? One really good bit of news is that list growth has increased. So there's been a 17% list growth since 2022. People are not getting tired of signing up to emails. And that means that they want to hear from you. Your efforts to grow your database are working and they're paying off because your lists are growing. Now it's now time to think about how you can make the best out of those efforts. But don't worry, the good news is going to continue over the next few slides. For every 1,000 emails sent in the UK across nonprofits, £66 is raised. Of course, some charities will do better and some are still working up to that. But to come back to my podcast analogy, I told you I was going to use it a million times. Via email, you're speaking to a highly engaged individual. And in fact, email remains such a great channel for generating income that it's responsible for generating 4% of all online revenue. And we're talking all online revenue, which also includes e-commerce. So it's a pretty big number when you think about it. I wasn't lying when I said that the good news continues. One reason why is that the lists are not just growing, are growing, but they're not remaining static because they're growing because you actually have a very low number of bounces and spams. So only 6% on average across the UK nonprofit sector bounces or is logged as spam. And only 7% as an average are unsubscribers, which juxtaposed with that 17% means that there's a steady list growth. And that is resulting in a high number of retention, which basically means more consideration should be given and applied to how you communicate with this audience, because they're not unsubscribing, but we want to make sure that those numbers are not actually increasing. So it's good news now, but we can't rest on our laurels. At the bottom of my screen, it says verify your domain. I do want to pause here and talk briefly about new Google and Yahoo rules. If you know what I'm talking about, feel free to put in the chat if you do know. And if you don't know, I'm really happy to just give you a very brief breakdown. Essentially, it's becoming ever more important to send from a verified domain. So from the 1st of February this year, 2024, Google and Yahoo have joined forces and they're enforcing new industry standards for email authentication, verification, and receipt. And it's all in a bid to cut down as much malicious activity as possible, so spam. That means that your emails hopefully will not be caught up in spam if you are verified. The combination of these two providers means that they're controlling over 48% of B2B emails across the world, which is a huge number. And it doesn't necessarily affect every charity because it is based on volume levels. And I think that most charities do not send as much of a volume, but their volume levels are based initially on from a starting point. They will be reflecting and adjusting the volume levels, and they're probably going to start bringing it down. So you will need to ensure that you're using industry standard verification methods to ensure that your emails are not going to get caught up in spam if you're sending to either Google or Yahoo addresses. Sending emails through Raisely allows you to verify your email domain, but if you have another platform, I would go ahead and double check whether you're able to verify your domain. If you want to talk through the nitty-gritty and the technical details of this, feel free to book a call with me or speak to your data or web team. But this is already in effect, so I do want to just pause there and just remind you to make sure that you're in the process of verifying your domain. Quick reminder, check your delegate bag, make sure you've got that all downloaded so you can enjoy all the lovely goodies. Now, back to the emails. We talked about the great news of the growing lists. What are we doing with that list? What are we doing with the content of those lists? It's not the best news. Charities in the UK have had a 30% increase in fundraising messages since 2021. Yes, it's been a pandemic. Yes, we've needed more support than ever. But from the donor's perspective, it may be quite relentless. So think about the fact that the email volume message has actually gone up. And in that volume message, we're asking them for more money, more stridently. Part of what we're going to be talking about today will not just be the basics, but also how to consider building new journeys so that you're addressing the volume, the segmentation, who you're talking to, what you're telling them, and also when's the most appropriate time to be putting those asks. I just want to reflect again that everything I'm going to tell you today has to be looked at through the lens of your charity. So while I'm giving you some hopefully great strategies and tips, I want you to just take a moment and think about, what does this mean for your audience and your donors? So just remember to look at everything through that lens. Now, first thing, I love to just take stock and start with brilliant basics. So some of you, or most of you, may be doing this already, but it's great to take stock of your stewardship journeys, how you're communicating with existing donors and fundraisers, and how those new to your organizations. What's the first thing they see or get sent? How do they get greeted? And how are they supported along the way? Well, first impressions count for a heck of a lot. So remember to pause here. Again, think about your donors and your audience. Think about what they need. So don't worry so much about industry trends. Don't worry so much about what everyone else is doing. Just think about what they need and what your charity needs as well. So put yourself in the shoes of who's reading your emails, what type of relationship they have with you, and how you want them to perceive your charity. I'm going to talk about 3 great tips in much more detail over the next few slides. Sending and tracking your first comms from coordinated lists. In other words, applying the correct segment to each individual, even if your database is very small. Remember, it is easier to start as you mean to go on, rather than clean up quite a big list later on. Add the personal touch. But remember, you are still representing an organization. So you do still need to reflect your brand and keep that front and center of your comms and integrate with your data capture platform. I'm going to dive into all of these in just a moment. But I do want to make sure that if you have any questions, you're putting them in the chat. We will try to answer these at the end of it. So feel free to ask questions about any of the slides or any further clarification that you need. What do I mean by personalized comms? Well, make sure that you send your first comms as soon as possible. Whenever I speak to charities in my day-to-day life now, I get to help lots of charities supercharge their fundraising, set up their fundraising campaigns, and also look at emails. This is the one thing that kind of comes up as something that we may not have considered. You may have a platform that doesn't allow you to send an email instantly, or you may have a bit of a delay built into it. From my perspective, sending and tracking your first communication from coordinated listing as soon as possible is probably the number 1 tip I can give you. Ideally, when I say as soon as possible, I mean instantly. So this could be a thank you for a donation if someone has sent a donation to either yourself or to a friend. And this could be a receipt or just a simple thank you with personalization. And I'm going to dive into personalization in a bit more information in a bit more in a moment. It could also be a welcome to a fundraiser. If a fundraiser has signed up, you want to welcome them straight away. You want to thank them at the beginning of the journey. Or go even further, send a notification email to a fundraiser when a friend or a family member has donated to their page. That way, you're keeping people engaged within the charity throughout the journey. And we're going to talk a lot about keeping people engaged throughout their journey with the charity. Balance the resources you have internally. So this is something I talk about a lot. Think about how much work you can actually bite off and chew internally, but there will be something that you will be able to do. And starting with that first email is so, so important. Not just for your newsletter, but also as a donor. So lots of platforms do automate these, having the automated email that gets sent off. Make sure you're removing the burden from your team, from your resources, by looking into these automation options. You don't want to get trapped in a situation where you have to send all of these manually, because of course you want your list to grow, but you don't want to be making more work for yourself or for the rest of your fundraising team. Now, the next tip is we tend to use the royal we when we speak as a charity. It has its place, of course, we're representing an organization, but consider how you can be both personal as well as have your brand remain front and center. So here's an example, going to my friend Bob. You can bring in your logo, your design touches, your colors, your tone of voice, and much more. But also personalize it. And we're going to go into personalization a little bit more later. Use an individual's name, So yes, you can say things like hello friend, hello valued supporter, but those should be fallbacks in case you don't have someone's name. Use more details around the campaign they may have donated to. Name the campaign they've donated to. If they're donating to a fundraiser, a friend, name the fundraiser that they're donating to. All of this information should be captured in your forms, and we'll go through that again in a bit more detail. Maybe note the amount they've donated and more. Make it really chatty and informal conversation that allows you to connect with your donor. Don't be too corporate and don't be too sort of official, but also make sure that you're still bringing in those touches of the brand by, like I said, the branding, but also tone of voice. You can do that by, like I mentioned, the right questions in your form or in your donation or the sign up form so that you can personalize whatever form that is. Really look into what your current platform is offering you and push it to its limits where you can, and if it's appropriate for your charity. Again, looking through the lens of your current donors. We all know the difference a personalized email can make versus something that feels like a bit of a mass copy and paste. So don't get bogged down into too many options, but you should be able to pull data from that sign up form or that donation form and put it through what we call pearls, personalized URLs, into your email platform. And some of the examples you see here is the backend of the Raisely platform. So let's have a very quick look at the type of personalization you can use. So it's not just about pulling in, someone's name, here we go, but further around the personalization. So let's think about if you can capture it, you can use it. So let's try and understand what connects and use that to help you think through how to capture what you need. So first off, like postcodes. This is a really great one for organizations that are very, very local or hyper local. So for example, and a great example could be, your gift will go a long way to support those in SW15 or in Tyneside or wherever you need to be. Can you use pronouns if it's appropriate? Can you use proximity to the cause? As in, are they someone who has used your services before, or have they had a close friend or family member who have used your services before? Look at the marketing opt-in and make sure that you're respecting data collection. So you can speak to someone through legitimate interest when they have connected with you, but of course, pay attention to the type of marketing opt-in that they have. And is this the first time they have connected with you? All these questions can be built into your forms, and you should be able to integrate with your CRM. So think about that journey, put yourself in the shoes of an individual. But again, just in the same way that I've talked about balancing your resources, balance what a donor wants to fill in. So think about the shape of your form so that you're able to capture all of this information and pull it into the email journeys as well. Now, it's easy to get excited. I did it myself when I worked at the Bite Project. I used a lot of different email journeys and built on it year on year on year. And it will come a point where you think, actually, it's not worth the level of journeys that I have for the type of lists and segmentation that I have. It is really important to remember the constant relevant comms. So just want to pause here for a quick moment and just wrap up the last couple of slides. So again, think about the integration. I'll go back one slide. Think about the integration that you have and the the fact that you can pull it into your data capture. So if you have a fully segmented list, if you don't have a fully segmented list, explore how you can have a CRM through other platforms. So when I talk about a list, I'm talking about your email data list, and make sure that you understand the relationship that each person has with you. That's what I mean by segmentation. And make sure that donors are reflected as donors, fundraisers, volunteers, or whatever else the segmentation is that you want. If you don't have access to that, then there are lots of platforms out there that allow you to do this in quite a simple way. So for example, Raisely has a simple built-in CRM and email platform that will allow you to track, segment, tag, and communicate with your donors. Look at your current tech stack. If there is anything like that, you should be able to start using it. So just wrapping up here, remember who you're talking to, the relationship they have with you, and what you want to tell them. If you plan through that for every type of person, you'll be getting off to a really, really good start. Now, remember when I said that nonprofits send an average of 27 emails per subscriber? It's now time to look at the content of those emails. I'm just going to actually pause here, and Amy has asked, what is a coordinated listing? What I meant by a coordinated listing, I may have covered this already, is your email database. So an email database is making sure that you're coordinating who is where in what list. So if a donor signs up, make sure that you're putting them in the donor list, so that when you're sending information about, for example, new fundraising campaigns, you can send it to them, as well as fundraisers that may be lapsed. So you might want to have a different list for lapsed fundraisers. You don't want to send a new fundraising campaign to someone who has just finished a campaign for you, or who has who is in the middle of, for example, a virtual DIY campaign. That's about making sure that you've got those coordinated lists built, and that's about looking at your database and looking at how you can automate it. I hope that's helpful, Amy. Simon, would it be possible to get our second question up on the screen if we have it? And that would be, and then we can have a little bit of questions. So what would you like to improve about your email stewardship? Wave a magic wand. If you didn't have any money issues or any resource issues, what would be the number one thing, or maybe number 1, 2, and 3 that you would like to improve about your email stewardship? Type it in. We've got some participants typing already, and we will be able to maybe go through some of the details. I think that the thing I definitely want to keep coming back to here is resources. It's so important to remember that, you know, we're not all surrounded by a huge team. At the bike project, I had a team. I was very lucky by the time I was leaving to have a team of about 5, but I started off as a single person. So we've got a lot of answers coming in here. Personalization, I'm loving that is that's the thing that I've been talking about for the last 25, 30 minutes. Engagement, we're going to talk about how to track engagement in just a moment. More automation, I love that. That's exactly what I've just been talking about. That automation, exploring platforms that will give you that automation, will take so much work off your team. Open rates. We are going to talk about open rates in just a moment as well, and how to track that. Not just how to look at it, but how to use those numbers to really dive into next steps and how to address that. And we've got segmented data. Yep, love the segmented data. It actually is, I wouldn't say easy, but it is simple to segment your data. So it does take quite a bit of work. And this might be a great time for me just to pause a little bit and talk again about some of the work that I did at the bike project, which I'm now using examples when I'm talking to my current clients. At the bike project, we had quite a big list, but we didn't know who they were and what they were doing and their relationship. So I was lucky enough to work with the rest of my team to decide on a series of lists. But another thing that's really important about segmentation is deciding what's the most valuable relationship an individual has with you if they have more than one relationship with you. So for example, often we have people who are engaged with us in more than one way. We might have a volunteer that was a fundraiser. We might have a fundraiser that's also a regular giver. And I think it's important to think about how you want to celebrate that individual and what relationship you want to celebrate them for. So think about your list, think about the type of relationships that they have, and start slotting people into groups. Now, you don't have to go, crazy. You don't have to spend a lot of time building these lists. You could do it as simple as regular givers, cash givers, fundraisers. That's it, 3 lists. Or you could start with donors, fundraisers. Or you could start with lapsed donors, lapsed fundraisers, active, and so on. And as you build your list, as it grows with more people, you're able to start bringing in more of those segmentation. And the more segmentation you have, the better the personalization can be. Because then you can say, hi, Joe, you took part in our campaign X in 2023. You raised Y. This allowed us to do so much work. Would you consider now donating to appeal Z? All of these bits of information allow you to have that personal conversation with your donors on your fundraisers. Okay, thank you so much, Simon. Going to pop back to my slides now, and we're going to dive a little bit further into relevant comms, just keeping an eye on the time here because I want to have time for questions along the way. Now, what do I mean when I say constant relevant comms? So remember that competition for your donors' attention is really, really fierce. I did say that, yes, it is the podcast of comms, but we're not just competing with other emails in the inboxes. We're competing with Netflix, social media, WhatsApp messages coming through. Yes, when we're looking at our inbox, it tends to be quite focused. We're in that one screen and you're not scrolling through a feed, but you do have other devices nearby. You might have your phone. You might even be using social media or web WhatsApp on another platform. So remember that your donor's attention will always be slightly split. And just like video killed the radio star back in the day, I think I've just aged myself, it may be time to retire the monthly newsletter. I know a lot of us still do that. Or if we're not going to retire it, at least let's look at what else we can send via communications. I've popped a few examples in the coming slides, but all of this is meant to help you look at the various type of emails you can send and also how you can actually use those emails, again, based on personalization, based on segmentation, and how can you automate them so that it's taking all of that work from your fundraising team. So here are some of the examples. You've got some emails that you can send for fundraising profile updates. If someone updates their goal or their fundraising income, are you able to send them an email to say congratulations or thank you so much for wanting to raise even more money? Are you able to send immediate confirmations of that donation or the sign up? And are you able to send the asks split by the different appeals and projects, but also segmenting who you're sending it to so that you're not adding to that 30% increase in fundraising messages? Not everything needs to land in one message. So why can't we take our donors on a journey? Let's have a quick look at a fundraiser's journey here, looking at the fact that their journey begins and you can send them a welcome. So a fundraiser's journey. So they've signed up 3 days after their profile has created. Do you want to send them an update that says, let's get started? And do you want to automate that so that you're, again, not having your team having to remember, okay, it's been 3 days and I need to send that and so on. Then it can be followed by some tips on how to fill out their profile. Further on, it can be ways on how to ask friends and family to donate to themselves, just bearing in mind the cost of living. And we might all be worried to ask friends and family for money. A good rule of thumb is 3 to 5 emails per journey. But again, it's all dependent on your audience. And back to my favorite talk, favorite word, this talk, segmentation based on their interaction with you. So if they have, and I'm going quite deep here, again, balance it with your resources. If they have already taken a challenge with you previously, are you able to talk about that challenge in their welcome email? If they are a new fundraiser, are you able to welcome them as a new fundraiser? And as part of your delegate bag, we have included some great email journeys, like I mentioned, that you can just use. So they're written by our amazing team. We've popped them into a Miro board and we've pulled them out of the Raisely system backend. So that Miro board is accessible for you. And remember to always balance the ask with the celebration. So when as long as we are asking, we should also be celebrating it. There's no point in consistently hammering how much help we need if we're not also talking about what we are doing with that help. Let's go into a little bit more detail around each segment and how we can communicate with them. Oh, sorry, this is just a quick automated message journey. Like I mentioned, we've pulled that out of the Raisely system. This is what it looks like on the back end of the Raisely system, and you'll click on one of these, but they're all in a Miro board for you. So feel free to download them. And if you don't, you've got my email address at the bottom and I'll get them right across to you as well. Now, let's have a quick look around the segments that we talked about, right? So the coordinated listing. So the first one is donors, so new and recurring, should be split in an ideal world. You can send them separate emails, either welcoming them to the charity if they're new, or updating them on what their gift is helping you achieve. How do you update recurring donors? Well, if they're a one-off cash giver and they have previously donated to you, thank the fact that they have donated to you again. Of course, all of this is dependent on how long you're keeping the data for. If someone donated, 10 years ago, you may not have their data anymore, but keeping in mind that this may be someone who's coming back quite often. If it's a regular giver, you might want to update them on what their gift has done 6 months in, a year in, and so on. And if it's a new donor, you can welcome them to the charity. Current donors don't need to know as much about your charity as a whole. They need to know about what you're doing now. But new donors, you do want to introduce them to your charity and talk about some of the impact. Let's talk about fundraisers. So keeping them engaged across the journey. One of the boldest email journeys I ever saw was this fantastic organization that we worked with at Raisely. It was a 30-day onboarding journey with an email being sent every single day to new fundraisers. That's really bold. And I think a lot of us will probably be a bit scared to send emails every single day. But I do want to tell you that there is a balance, if that's too much for your charity, between that monthly newsletter and the everyday. There are small ways that you can engage with fundraisers. At the Bike Project, we started off by sending emails based on someone's activity within the campaign itself. So if they were 25% of the mileage or their goal there, 50%, 75%, with conditions built in that would skip over an email if they reached, for example, 50% in one day. So consider the journeys that will keep these fundraisers excited and engaged and completing their challenges. That's the point. You want to get them through that journey. You want to get them to their mileage and their goals. You can also send updates on the amount of money they've raised. If they've raised £200, £300, do they get a medal? Do they get a journey? Do you want to talk about what you'll do with their money, celebrating the impact along the way? For appeals, there is a bit of a fine line between balancing the ask and, again, the celebration. But it's really important to just have that happen, even mid-campaign, to keep that donor fatigue down, because you're not the only cause asking for the help, even though they may be focusing on your cause at the moment. So start off maybe with a really bold ask, celebrate the win along the way, then have a second ask halfway, 3/4 of the way. Update them on the post-campaign impact. Give them an update, 3-4 months later down the road. Don't just thank them at the end of the appeal and then that's it. You don't communicate with them again other than that monthly newsletter. Now, going further with data, we're coming to the end and hopefully we're going to have some questions. I'm going to talk for about 5 minutes more. And I think it's really important to focus on this because just had some questions, just had some sentences pop up around data, using the data for open rates and things like that. And I want to talk about that a little bit more here. So let's go beyond the basics. What are the numbers that you can use to further your planning? There are some basic numbers that we can look at and that everyone looks at. But I want to take a moment here and think through what data is available so you can go through the various routes to reach your audience. First up, really, really simple. Open rates, click-through rates, response rates, and unsubscribe rates. Think about what you are doing with those numbers at the moment. They're all there. Every email platform will show you these bits of data, but are we actually doing anything with them? If you're looking at the open rate and you can see it steadily declining over the last couple of months or years, what is it about your subject line, or what is it about the kind of maybe the first impact of when it lands on the inbox that you need to test? So it might be the subject line that you need to test. It might also be the time of day that you need to test it. And it might be that because you are not sending emails quite frequently, you may be ending up in spams at some times. Think about the click-through rates. So is someone clicking through? And if they're not clicking through, is it because the call to action is not strong enough? Or is it because of where you've placed the call to action? Some websites like reallygoodemails.com allow you to look through all of the data of various sectors and different businesses and look at, some of the tests they may have done. I do know of a charity where they placed the call to action right at the very top, similar to where your donate button would be on a website, top right-hand side, and they saw a good number of increases in that. Think about also the unsubscribe rates. I talked about the fact that across the sector, we're doing really, really well on unsubscribe rates, but people do get frustrated. So make sure that if you see a high number of unsubscribe rates or a sudden spike, that you're making sure to just take a step back and think, not just what's wrong with this email, but what have we been doing along the last few months or even weeks to kind of inspire that unsubscribe rate. Using UTMs across all links to track page completion rates is really important. So make sure that you're tracking those links. So when you put a call to action in, put a specific UTM link in so that you can see which call to action was the one that worked the best. And then you can test that again, talking about where you're placing the call to action. And then split the data by the type of message and the type of audience. So don't look at all of your data all at once. In the same way that you're sending different messages to different segments, make sure that you are splitting that data. So don't compare your donors to your fundraisers. Treat each group as their own kind of individual group. And going even further beyond the data, here are some examples, and we are coming, I think, to the end of this now. So hopefully there are some questions that will start coming through. If you can go beyond the data, you can use multiple touch points, so different email journeys to engage users based on their interest. So let's go into the detail of this. If they've not opened the emails, let's say you send an email, let's focus on even more. Let's say there's an appeal. You send the appeal to your audience, you send them separately to regular givers and to cash givers. Simplest segmentation we possibly can. And you notice that 60% of your regular givers did not open the email. So what you then do is you send them just that group, and your email platform should allow you to do this. Set up a new segment, regular givers received campaign X, did not open. Send them another email with a new subject line. Don't change anything else about the rest of the email. They didn't open it. They don't know what's on inside there. If they did open the email, if a percentage did open it, but they didn't click anything, add in a new case study. So change up the content of the email just a little bit to make it fresher, or maybe even change up where the call to action is or how many call to actions there are. If they clicked, but they did not donate, so you used a UTM to track the page completion rate, and this is why it's really important, and you know that they didn't click and they didn't donate, you want to put a stronger call to action. So maybe you want to humanize what you're asking them. £50 will allow us to do X. If 50 of you donate £50, we will be able to help 500 people, or whatever the numbers are. But really going strong with that bold ask, because at the moment they're not reacting. So you may as well test it. And then repeat it for a specific interaction. So again, I cannot stress enough that you need to have your donors and your fundraisers having different journeys. So I'm giving you some really simple examples of how to segment. You want to segment your fundraisers, your regular givers and your cash givers, or just all givers and fundraisers, but just having that personalization built into your segmentation, gosh, buzzwords today, will be able to really help you get to being able to build those journeys. Ooh, a lot of talking there. I think we are going to stop here and start asking some questions. Hopefully.
We are indeed, and thank you very much for that. Now, I'm conscious people might have to chip off, and I think me and you are going to get carried away with this conversation now. So before people leave, just to remind you, the recording will be available at the same link. So please do come back to the same link if you miss anything or you want to watch it back. And the delegate bag is there. I know people are looking for a PDF and things like that. So anything people have been looking for in the chat, don't worry, we'll get it in the delegate bag for you. We'll get it there, but you can get that at the same link. And then obviously to book in some time with Muna, I imagine people want to chat more deeply with you. But I'll leave this up on the screen while we're chatting a bit so people can reach out to you that way.
Sure. I love talking emails, so yeah, reach out.
Okay, good. That's great, because I've got some questions for you. So there's a few questions, and people have been really good in terms of answering each other's questions in the chat. So please keep doing that, people. And I'll focus on maybe some of the questions that others haven't answered. There was one which I've never heard asked actually, which I thought was a really good question from Jade. And she was talking about email journeys when it comes to things like legacies, which are much longer term, and you're talking about those kind of 3 to 5 steps. And it's very, you can't plan an email journey for multi-year, presumably. But how do you approach someone who's maybe on that legacy journey, but is also, your day-to-day donor as well?
Wow, I actually have never heard that asked before.
Yeah, isn't that a great question? Sorry to put that. I should have asked you an easy one first.
No, I love it, because it leads me to think about how you're communicating with them about their legacy. So a lot of what I've talked about has been about celebrating what donors have done for you. And when it comes to legacies, they've obviously supported you for a very long time. So it's about looking at, first of all, look at the other comms that you're sending them as well. Are they folded into your monthly newsletter? Do they have a different relationship with you? So deciding which relationship they have with you is the most valuable. I would say, off the top of my head, I've not really worked with a lot of legacies, but off the top of my head, a legacy relationship is probably the most important relationship they have with you, even if they are, a fundraiser and so on.
Interesting.
I would say, what do you think, Simon? Would you not?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and I would agree because of the value of them, and because someone who shows that intention, they're obviously going to be more engaged in other areas. I think that the challenge that comes to mind is you'll have a lot of trouble getting that approved, for other teams to relinquish that person.
Yeah,
for that longer term gain, which is a really interesting conversation, like something like that.
And I actually think you can even consider them on the same level as major donors. These are people that are engaged with you for a long time, and major donors are engaged with you for a lot of money. But think about kind of the level of not just money, but advocacy that they are supporting your charity with. So really treat them as an incredibly valuable individual, and think about maybe updating them not just within the monthly newsletters, but also quarterly. Maybe you want to send them out a quarterly update on what their legacy gift is giving, and really quantify that so that they're constantly being told, this is how important you are, and this is what you've helped us achieve manageably, which is why I'm saying something like quarterly.
That's a really good point about almost classifying them as a major donor, and that makes a lot of sense. And that seems like a good, simple way to start that segmentation rather than overcomplicating it, which I guess leads on to another question where so people have been asking about, where do you start with segmenting? And I know we have a lot of small charities here who coming away from this, we're still going to feel overwhelmed. It's going to
Yeah,
feel like too much work to.
I know.
Is the first segmentation you do, is that by gift amount, you know, the most valuable and less valuable? Like what are the priorities that we simply must do?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I'm coming back to talking about balancing your resources versus what you want to do. And I've done it. I've chewed off way more, bitten off way more than I can chew, and been told by like my colleagues and my, the managers that I sort of looked after, oh, Mona, you want to like take a step back, really. But I would say think about the your audience as a whole. And I would say the simplest one is splitting your donors from your fundraisers, then looking at your donors and splitting them again into regular givers, cash givers, and then splitting them into maximum 3. So you want to do like maybe 0 to £50, £50 to £150, and then £150 onwards. If people aren't giving you that high of a gift, come down.
Yeah, you're led by your own organization, what you're seeing.
And once you've split it, look at the numbers. There's no point in running a separate journey for a segment that has only got 5 people in it. So look at the data and don't be too afraid to go in, change things and update things as you go. Nothing has to be set in stone.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's almost like you're led by time rather than by the numbers first. So it's like, well, how much time do I have to put into my major donors each week? Kind of 3 hours. So how many people can I fit in that? And that's going to be the people that classified into it and everyone else. So I think a lot of it as fundraisers, because there's always more you can do. You can always be more personal. So
yeah, we could all use like 5 more people in our teams.
Yeah. It's coming. Well, 5 more people. One thing that is coming or has come that is almost like 5 people is like automations, and you touched on that, and a few people were asking about that. Maybe you could speak to that. Where do you start with getting automations? I mean, I'm assuming a lot of tools, you know, Raisely I know has some automations in there. Things like Zapier are available to others. What do you like? What have you seen working for people?
So I think it depends on what the capacity of your current tech stack is to begin with. There's a lot of tools out there that are amazing. So if you have a CRM platform like Salesforce or Razor's Edge, Microsoft Dynamics, and so on, you can use that in order to, through your donation form, your sign up form, to segment people. But not every charity has access to that because they can be quite expensive. So it's looking at what is your current email platform capable of? Are you using MailChimp, Digital, Campaign Monitor? Are you using Raisely? There's all of these automations are available. You will need to carve out some time in your week to just switch off your inbox and have a look into the resource documents at the back end of your platform and use that automation. If you don't have any automation now, the number one thing I would ask you to start with is welcome journey. Thank you for signing up for a fundraiser, and a thank you for the donation. If your current platform doesn't have that, there are other platforms that are free that you can look into. And I promise you it's difficult to set it up, but I promise you it is worth it. So I would strongly encourage you to look into starting with those 2 automations.
I think that's a great point. And I would say, you know, people have heard me say this on most things, is reach out to your supplier, because I know people like Raisely, if you're already a customer, for example, for a start, they are so supportive. And I've actually seen like tech companies like change features just simply because you request something. So that's what they're there for. But even if you're not a customer, reaching out to people like you, I've always found people helpful, like what's possible and what are the steps to do it. And even if you're not a client or a customer, that's a really good way to do it. It's like, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask. Drop me an email. I'm happy to chat via email, or go on a quick 10-minute chat. I'm really happy to just kind of talk through where you are at the moment and give you some good ideas on how to get to the next stage that you want to be at.
Thank you. Someone talked about, just ask quickly about opening rates. And there was talk about emojis, you know, too many emojis and too few emojis, and what open, you know, does it make a big difference on opens and click rates depending on your subject line? And I think the general consensus was, yes, there's so much within that. So I guess my question for you is, where do people go to, or where do you go to learn what open rates work and don't work? And where do you kind of benchmark these things? Like what's your go-to cheat sheet?
So my go-to is reallygoodemails.com. It's a really good website that you can, it's a bit like Unbounce. So you can go on there and look at what's really working, because they aggregate a lot of different email journeys, which I think can be really, really helpful. And the second thing is your own data. So your platform should allow you to do A/B testing. So most platforms allow you to send an email out to a smaller segment with 2 different subject lines before deciding which subject line was the best one, and they'll send it to the rest of your the rest of that segment. So I would definitely recommend try one with an emoji and then try one without an emoji. I think in charities we tend to be really scared of the test and learn methodology, because the learn part technically means we failed, because maybe it didn't work as well as we wanted it to. But the point is, you're supposed to be learning something. So I think it's really, really worth testing out, just using your own data, but balance it with your tone of voice. If you're quite a serious charity, then there's no point in suddenly bringing in emojis and confusing your current audience.
Yeah, and I think that scares people sometimes. You talked about being very personal, and that kind of that advice I've heard from like day one in my career, and it's always worked for me. To like the more personal, more people connect. But I know people have a fear sometimes of being like over familiar, or being offending a big formal donor who maybe doesn't want to be called by their first name. What do you say to queries like that?
So again, I think looking at your audience at the moment, but segmentation will help with that. So if you have a donor, a major donor that's giving you £10,000 a year, you don't want to refer to them as "Hey friend." You want to build that kind of personal relationship. So I think about start with segmentation, but also look at your audience and make sure that you're doing the work. We're getting away a little bit from emails here, but make sure you're doing the work in understanding what your tone of voice is and how it works for your audience. But it's all about just communicating with people based on their interaction with you and their relationship with you. It's not really about, how the relationship you want to have with them. It's about the relationship they already have with you.
Very good. That's brilliant. I'm so conscious of time, so I'm just going to say one quick thing. There was talk of UTMs about what are they, and questions around that. So I would say reach out to Muna to have a deep conversation, because there's a lot there. But essentially, it's part of the link. It's buried within the link, and it then tells your system where that person clicked on that link. So it allows you to track it back. So that's essentially what it is. But we're doing some work on that ourselves, and there's so much to do in it. So we don't have time for that. But just to finally, because I find this so interesting. People always are concerned about sending too many emails. And every time we see the data, and every time consultants and experts speak, it seems to imply we're not sending enough email.
We're not sending enough emails.
So tell me just finally, what is the clash there, and why are we having trouble convincing people, and then once they're convinced, getting approval to send more fundraising emails?
Because I think people consider sending emails as a nuisance. They think that you're bothering people. They think, oh, well, they've already donated. I'm just going to leave them alone, or they've already fundraised. I'm not going to annoy them. And I say this all the time. If you're a Raisely client, you will have heard me say this if we talked about email. You're not Deliveroo, and you're not Wayfair. You're not sending them emails repeatedly for stuff that they don't care about. They have actively opted in. They have a relationship with you, either through using your service, having a family member use your service, being a donor, being a fundraiser, and they want to hear from you. A really good rule of thumb to start with is to send 1 email per week and see how that goes out. And the data shows, as Simon has said, that the more emails you send up to a certain point, the more successful it will be, because you're not bothering them. Remember that they have a relationship with you.
And you said it earlier that people are in terms of the content, that obviously you're not going to send loads and loads of emails if you don't have anything to say, but be led by that content. And our job as fundraisers is to generate that content, really. And so it's like, be led up by that. If you have good content, people do want to hear from you. And I've had mailings from companies where when I want them and they're interested, you can email me every day. If you're interested in it. It's not that people want less email; they want less shitty email.
100%.
It's really interesting, but it's a difficult mindset to go, because almost we're embarrassed sometimes to represent ourselves and our charity, but actually the person on the other end very often wants to know.
Yeah, they do. They do. And don't be embarrassed. Try it. And just keep paying attention to the data. If you send, if you give yourself a month or 2 weeks and you send, an email twice a week and you realize that unsubscribe rate is creeping up, just maybe take it back down. But don't be freaked out. Your email list is growing. We're seeing a trend of email list growing, and you will be able to learn from that data, from trialing new things.
Amazing. That was great. As always, I'm sure we'll see you again in the near future.
Yeah.
But Muna, thank you so much for your time, and that's great.
My pleasure.
And I hope lots of people reach out to you and have a chat.
Yeah. Let's talk if you want to. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, I really appreciate, and thank you, Simon. I love doing these with Fundraising Everywhere. Such a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant. That was great. So yeah, please do look. I'll leave the contact details up there for a second. Please do reach out. But underneath the video here, you'll also see a link there to book in some time with Muna, some one-to-one time. Highly recommend that. That'd be really helpful. But also at the same link, remember, it will remain active with the recording, so you can come back and watch this back. I know there was a lot in there. And then the delegate bag will remain active. And there's a couple of things people have requested for, and we'll do our best to get back into them. But if there's anything, people wanted to unpack some stats more and things like that, anything in particular that you want for yourself, then do reach out to Muna, because she's just been so generous with her time and information. So last bits from me. Yes, remember, you can get everything from here. That's all great. We would love your feedback on that as well. So you'll see that little polls button, that's still active. So if you want to give any feedback on there and let us know what you'd like to see in a future session, or see Muna come back and talk about at a future conference, then please do. Speaking of future conferences, our next big conference is the Supporter Experience Conference, which I imagine there's going to be lots of information around that there. So that's on the 16th of May. And we've got a few other things coming up, but always check fundraisingeverywhere.com for those. You can register for them, but if you're a member, remember as a member in December. No, as a member, you get access to all of that stuff. So please, if you're a member, don't worry about it. You get access to all this. This recording will be added to your library. You know the drill, members. If you don't know the drill about membership, good Lord. I mean, do I have to keep talking about it? Come on, join the Fundraising Everywhere crew. But that's it from me, really, everyone. It's so lovely to see you, and I can see some people saying goodbye. So thanks, Ian. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Rob, Fran. Yeah, we've got some nice chat in there, and some lovely words for Muna. So we'll try and get that chat available for everyone as well, because I know there's some good resources shared in there. But from me, that's everyone. That's everyone. That's everything. That's a pretty bad sign off, isn't it? But yeah, from me, that's it. We'll see you at a future event. Lovely to see you, and have a good day. Take care of yourself.
We've made the commitment to create an environment where ambitious fundraisers can really thrive and grow and develop, and know that their well-being is a priority for everybody within the directorate and indeed the wider organisation, and critically that this priority will be taken incredibly seriously.
Great question to talk to your team about. When have you felt that you belonged most strongly in this organisation? Why was that? What are the barriers to feeling like you belong?
to just focus on a protected characteristic like race, yes, technically you achieve diversity, but actually I might not have the access issues that someone else might have.
So my conclusion is actually we can't do it all. So what can we do to run really effective small organisations and to enjoy ourselves in the process?
Everywhere Plus makes planning virtual events well easy. We're a virtual events platform and project management service that works with organisations in the charity sector. Online events are full of possibilities. We make it simple, effective and stress-free. Everywhere Plus.
Welcome to Fundraising Everywhere membership, the one URL that you need to save for everything fundraising, support and training. Just to give you a little bit of tour behind the scenes for what you'll get as part of the membership real quick. So we have monthly meetings exclusively for members where you can come in with your camera on or off, mic on or off, and we get right into the details of what's going to help you progress in your career and well-being. So this month we have a session on burnout. We've also had topics on how to use Canva, how to write a thank you letter, how to prioritize priorities. You tell us what's important to you and what you need, and we make that happen. In addition to the member workshops, you also have instant access to all of the sessions that we've hosted on Fundraising Everywhere since 2019. But don't worry, you can filter the date. You can even look for speakers, topics, or the session name if that is something that you already know what you're looking for. We have over 500 sessions available on our platform at the moment, and every time we host a live conference or a webinar, it gets recorded and added to your library. Now, 500 session sounds quite overwhelming. So what we have done for our members is bundled some of these together. So when you join the membership, this is somewhere you can come into, look for a bundle that's relevant to you, watch the sessions, get comfortable with how it works, and then you can go off and explore everything else. And on that note, you're automatically registered for all future conferences and events that we do at no extra charge, even if we add new ones, which we are doing in 2024. And you can find the details of that in the members portal, or you can head to the main part of the website to find out events happening in the future. There's also some support here to help you get connected with each other, because the community and peer support is very important to us too. So we have a Slack community where you can ask your questions, get answers, or contribute to others. And you can also book a free 30-minute coaching call. Tell us your problem, and if it's not something that we can deal with ourselves, we connect you with one of our speakers, experts, or another fundraiser in the community to help you get through that rough spot. And what we've also done as well for our members is pulled together a coaching program and a support program for existing and future leaders. And even if you don't have leadership in your title, that is still you, because you have to influence decisions, you have to manage your own career. And that's all here for you with exclusive, newly recorded content that'll take you through all the fundamentals of leadership training. And you can also book in a coaching call with a cohort of coaches, and you can choose which one fits the need that you're currently working towards at the moment. And then Fundraising Everywhere will pay for that. For our organizational members, you do have an account manager who will support you every month to give you an update on how your team are doing, who are your top users. We work with you to find out what you and your team need, and we feed that into our future conferences and events. And did I mention that once you're in, you never have to pay for anything else? You don't have to pay for extra training, you don't have to pay to attend an event, you don't have to pay for travel or accommodation. And for organizational members, everyone in your charity with your email address gets access to this as well. Do email hello@fundraisingeverywhere.com if you would like to become a member, and we look forward to you joining our community very soon.
Fundraising everywhere.
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 Fundraising everywhere. You need to add me in there.